For the entire summer, Joe Biden was silent as his far-left supporters assaulted police officers, harassed innocent Americans, and set fire to buildings. They were rioters, they were looters, they were anarchists. He called them peaceful protesters. He said they're peaceful protesters. Joe, they're not peaceful. Now, maybe he may believe it. I mean, honestly, they may say they're peaceful. Okay, I'll say they're peaceful. I think he believes it. I actually do. It's the other ones that you have to worry about because they call the shots, not him. He's called for the ridiculous cutting of police funding, abolishing cash bail, if you can believe that, and the closing of our prisons. They want to close our prisons. That's a good idea. He even described law enforcement as the enemy. He said law enforcement is the enemy. Now, you know, I assume, I'll ask the fake news, has he taken it back? I assume, because he's taken everything back. He's taken anti-fracking back. He's taken pretty much everything back. But remember, it's the first thing they say. That's what they stick with. Biden's anti-police crusade must stop. As president, I will always stand with the heroes of law enforcement. That's why we're here.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, I sit down with my anonymous source who has come forward to go public and talk about everything that's happening today. We're going to actually sit down and break down Q's latest set of posts, and I hope you guys stick around and check that out. But he claims to be a former United States Air Force intelligence asset, and he has some insights that I think you guys will be very interested to hear. We're going to do that, so stick around and check that out and a whole lot more. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. You guys remember, always hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. And if you want to see more of this content, hit the like button. Also, stick around at the end. We're going to do our God's Grace is Greater segment. And today we're going to talk about growth in faith with these incredible words that show us how to live a godly life and how to become saved truly in the truest form. And it's just so powerful. It's a scripture out of 2 Peter. So I'm going to share these words with you at the end of this episode. But today's episode's a little bit different and a little bit special. So basically today we're picking up where we left off, 4764. So we left off 4765. And as you heard in the beginning, my good friend who has basically been an anonymous source for me for I think 3 years plus now, he has come forward. You guys saw him on a show about last week. I put it out on Saturday, and you guys really wanted him to come back because I said if you guys want to hear him come back, then you should let me know in the comments, and a lot of you did. And the video did really well, even with the suppression that's going on at YouTube. So I figured I'd have him back on today, and as we were doing our interview, the Q post started dropping. So we started there. So what I'm going to play for you now is our interview where we start and we go through each of the newer posts, each one by one, and we kind of break them down. And his take is really, I think, valuable, and it's great to kind of get another person involved with this. So I'm going to play this portion of the interview, and it's part one of a two-part interview where this is going to be the first part where we go through these latest Q posts together. Then the second part is the one you're really going to want to see because we go down some rabbit holes. And that's going to be probably about an hour-long interview that we did then after we broke down the Q posts, and I'm going to be posting that soon in the future. But this is part one of our two-part interview, so check this out. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. Today, once again, we're joined by a very special guest. His name is, well, might be Chris, and for lack of a better way of describing it, he's been here on the show before. You guys know him, but if you don't know him, he'll give you just a short rundown of who he is and why he's come forward. But this is an anonymous source I've had for over 4 years. We've had a running correspondence, and the long story short is he's given me great, reliable information. He has a pretty interesting story and background, and he wants to come out and come public and share this information with all you guys. And we're gonna talk about a lot of different stuff. But thanks for coming on the show, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me back again. I appreciate it.
So first of all, our last show did really well, and a lot of you guys were. I told you to go down in the comments and let me know if you want to have him back on the show. Then we'll do that. And a lot of you did. And our video, even through the content suppression algorithms at YouTube, almost got 175,000 views. Thanks to all of you out there who watched and all of you who gave your input, your comments, and everything. So we're going to get through a lot of stuff today. But Chris, for those of people who didn't see that interview, who are new to meeting you now, give them a little background about yourself so that they understand who you are and why you're coming forward to talk today.
A veteran of the Air Force and who worked for the Inspector General, and after the Inspector General, since it's not a full-time AFSC, another AFC within the intelligence-related field. From there, I worked for the government, which I'm not going to go into at this time, at least. As far as my relationship with you, as you stated, we've been discussing information for about 3 to 4 years now, related to the Q drops and related to just general OPSEC and just SEC security issues within the United States and West in general. Also current events and everything on that scope. We're mostly just looking into Q drops and how it directly affects the United States, the country we love.
That's a good way of putting it. And a lot of times when we talked about this in the last episode, the reason I knew you were a great source for information is I know you're on the boards because you'd share, links to different board posts. At first it was the 8chan, then it was 8kun, etc. But somehow we'd be having a conversation and a couple days later, lo and behold, you'd see it on the Q board. And I just thought, wow, that's interesting. And of course, I didn't really know who you were for that whole time. But, because I was just taking the information you were giving me and looking at it objectively and saying, okay, this is important, I should share this. It was a good correspondence, and we kept it going for quite some time. But today, interestingly enough, as we start our conversation, Q's in the middle of dropping on the boards. So that might be where we start this conversation because, we're going to go through the whole decode. But for that, we're going to start over here on the Q board. And I'm going to go ahead and just ask you I'm going to walk through these posts with you and we'll talk about them. So for those of you who don't know, we left off at Q post 4764, and 4765 is the newer post and going forward from there. Talk about first, I guess, the significance of the American flag in a lot of Q posts. You see it in reference a lot. Here you see a picture of what looks like, somebody in the Air Force or the Marines, I can't really tell, who is, holding the American flag out of the back of, presumably some sort of transport plane or something. And then attached to this is this song from The Last of the Mohicans. And Q had referenced this song before, saying a lot of men and women who have heard this song going into battle, basically. So talk about this post real quick and you're kind of in what you take it as.
It's an interesting post. Q likes to reference the American flag for obvious reasons, in my opinion, at least. And the stars. Actually, what I'll do is I'll send you something later from the Air Force, the retirement ceremony for the Air Force, when it really describes the exact meaning of each and every facet of the flag. But in general, it just shows a united front between all Americans, regardless of race, religion, gender, all those things. We're all united as we stand and united moving forward. And that's something that's been lost. That's something that's been taken away, is better stated. Indoctrinated away is probably even better stated over the last few decades. But I think that there's been a lack of better word, an awakening over this time period that's brought people back together again. And so I think that Q really puts that picture out there, puts the flag out there a lot because it's such a symbol, it's such a strong symbol of freedom. In my personal opinion, it's one of the final, if not the final symbol of freedom in the world today. I mean, yes, there are other Western countries, but they're not as free as the United States in regards to, speech, the ability to defend yourself on certain things. And those are being weakened, of course, but still, even still, the United States is still the top of the food chain when it comes to those freedoms. So I think that it's such a beautiful symbol. I wear it whenever I can. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you 100%. And, a lot of people go down the rabbit hole with, the flag and the yellow fringe around the flag and maritime law and all that stuff. But I think more overly, it is exactly what you're saying. It's a symbol of unity. It's a symbol of, freedom. And it's really what we can all kind of get behind as far as taking on this, what we're taking on now. What about that song from The Last of the Mohicans? You ever hear this song or?
I haven't. Let me, I've seen the movie. Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. That's when I know the climactic fight. I mean, in my opinion, that's saying that we're at the climactic fight part. I mean, because if that part in the movie is when they charge in and they take out the villains. If I remember correctly, they toss them over the side of a mountain. But yeah, if memory serves.
Okay, yeah. And then I think somebody said that they play that song when they're going in, like certain, special operator teams play that song when they go into a battlefield or something, battle zone.
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Let's get to the next post because I think we spent enough time on that one. Then we got to try to. I'm going to try to get through all these. Which, as funny as it is, they're being posted as we're talking. And you were even telling me earlier that there's certain things that we were going to have that you were going to talk to me about that are getting posted in the post.
Yeah.
So, which it's you can believe it or not, but that seems to be something we've done a lot in the past. I know that. So the next one here is this Fox News article, which has this the plan for Black America from President Trump, but it designates the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organizations. So thinking about that, I mean, Q goes on talking about Democrat-founded, financially legal-backed organizations. DA set free blockade post-terrorist designate. DA no proof of individual link to Antifa argument coming. Antifa mapping began a long time ago. So talk about. We know what the DAs have been doing to basically to set the stage for this anarchy and chaos, right? And especially the Soros-backed DAs and all that. Talk about what the Antifa mapping means to you.
This is something that a lot of your viewers, or several of your viewers, I'm sure, were involved with as well. Back when, even before QAnon came into being, this is back even before the FBI Anon days, is when 8chan put together a comprehensive Antifa list. Some of your viewers will remember that, and some of us still have the archive of that. And this took place long ago, probably before, right around the time of FBI Anon. Anyway, long story short on that, people started to identify these people and put it into where this person is, who they're connected to, a hierarchy type chart. And so for them to say that, for Q to say the mapping began long ago, I mean, it could mean what I just discussed, that the Midnight Riders have been working on it for a long time, or it could mean, and it's probably a combination of the two, that the Fed's military intelligence, more so OSI, Office of Special Investigations, has been tracking these people for a long time because they're enemies of the Republic. So they probably know, for the most part, who most of them are. I personally know all the ones that are in my area. So even more than that, probably a 200-mile radius. So if I do in my area, then I'm sure that most of these people with much better resources and backed by the federal government, they're going to know all of them. So that's how I see the mapping.
Yeah, I agree with that take on it 100%. I know that they're probably going to do their best they know where everyone is. They know what everyone's doing. So, and I think this kind of goes back to what Q said. Sometimes you have to let people see, what these people really stand for, to the extent that, it's the only way you're going to have change. Because like Q says, and you keep quoting Q, right? But when you come to that precipice, that's when you make the choice to change. And that may be how our country has to get there. But so the next one here that I thought was interesting, it says some will take the easy path and exit early. Now, I'm reading that as meaning, we're talking about people who are going to, choose the easy way out, meaning they're going to take their own lives or surrender.
Yeah, I agree. And real quick, back on the last one, it's interesting that on 66, 4766, it's interesting that they're lumping the KKK with Antifa on that. You notice that?
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, the Democrats, it's just their new paramilitary wing. First it was KKK, now it's Antifa.
There you go. And I think that's something that was quite shocking to a lot of the, at least younger generation, and maybe even some of the older generation, is that, wow, the Democrats were the KKK, the party of the KKK. Yeah, they were. And, they can try to play this, we played a switcheroo game. It's just ridiculous. And,
I mean, that argument never holds water.
There are some silly arguments, like Prince Andrew's "I don't sweat," like that. That was probably the top tier of stupidity. But the whole we switch parties thing, that's up there as well. It's real bad.
I think it's wishful thinking for those people. But again, the next post here, 4768Q says judgment is coming. So we talked about this before briefly, but I think the easiest way to read this, in my opinion, is that not only will people be held accountable, I believe, as we get to the end of this Durham investigation, but I think, like you said in the last video, going into the next election or going into the next term, President Trump's going to be able to take the gloves off, really, and not have to worry about re-election. And if it comes down to what they're intimating, right? They say they're going to burn everything down if they don't get their way, then it may come to like a full-on conflict, and we'll have to try to keep our republic together. But that's the way I read that. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I agree. Well, let's consider this from another. Whenever I look at these, because as you and I have discussed before several times, there's sometimes messages within even more messages, and the whole future proves past thing. Even more so on the modern part is that sometimes you have to remember things from the past and then apply it to whatever's going on right now. So it's difficult sometimes to look at these and just know right off the bat what it is. But I think on these short ones, I think that's what it is. But logically, if we look at this and consider what's going on from a different perspective, throw Q out the window, throw me out the, throw everything else out the window, just logically consider Trump and his mindset on this. If the president doesn't handle this issue, let's say that he doesn't handle it, and he finishes out both his term or 2 terms, he puts his family in great risk with these people still being around. So logically stated, he has to take care of this issue. If there's one thing everybody should agree on with the president, is that he's very loving to his family. So remember that tweet he sent out to Iran a few years ago, basically threatening to turn him into a Stone Age country again? And you remember that 3 years ago or whatever?
I do recall that. And I think it's very, I never thought of it that way. That's a good observation, because if you think about it, really it would be putting, like you said, his own family, his own safety in danger if he let these people get back into power. And I think that's ultimately what it is. How can you let criminals come back into power in this country? I just don't see how that happens.
Yeah, he's crossed the threshold. I mean, we can. The big reason I'm bringing this up is the shills are going to come in and say, "Oh, well, we haven't seen anything. There hasn't been anything that happened," which is, categorically incorrect. But the bottom line is that that's one of their favorite things to say. So, and if it ever, kind of bothers an anon or a viewer, if it ever gets to you and says, "Yeah, maybe they're kind of right," just think about it logically. Throw everything else out the window and think about it logically. What happens if he doesn't take care of these things? Who is the first people that are going to get taken, probably handled in a very serious final type way, if you know what I'm saying? And that will be his family. I mean, they would be following pretty much the path of the Kennedys in that. And the Kennedys they've had so many terrible things happen to them. And he knows that. Trump is a student of history. So he knows that this is a me versus you. One of us is going to make it out of here. The other one will not. He knows that. And he's a smart man.
I agree. I think that's a very good way of looking at it. And I think it is good to kind of just take away all the outside chatter and the Q stuff and say, what logically makes the most sense. So the next one, I think, kind of ties into exactly what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about James Comey. Like, these are the people that need to be held accountable. Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Hussein, Obama, etc. So this one is Comey, it's this older post where he wrote that op-ed, and he talks about, so it was all lies, no treason, no spying on the campaign, no tapping Trump wires. It was just good people trying to protect America, which is a lie, in my opinion. And, it
was a lie.
This is from December of 2019. And now today, the text messages are out. We just saw them in previous Q posts where it talks about how, they're having conversations behind the scenes saying this is all a big setup, and we don't even want to be a part of it. Some people were taking out, insurance policies so that they wouldn't be held liable, et cetera, et cetera. But we're seeing more and more information come out to corroborate the fact that the whole investigation was predicated off of information that was basically fabricated or planted by the FBI against President Trump, General Flynn, Carter Page, et cetera, to get the special counsel as their main insurance policy against President Trump getting into office, because this all happened especially after the election. So it was the election happened, then they're just scrambling to get this stuff going. So then Q says basically in response that worth remembering, think what you know now. So what do you think about that?
I think that this one's obvious. I think that all of your viewers, every Anon is going to know exactly what this means. I mean, how many years have they said, there's nothing there. You're a Russian troll if you think this. You're anti-American if you think this. Their side is always the best. Their primary move is always blame somebody of the exact same thing that you yourself are doing. That's exactly what they do. It just happened the other day. We'll talk about this later with Biden in China. But what I think about that is that what's the saying? The chickens are coming home to roost. And in this situation, all the evidence is starting to trickle out there little by little. And what that typically is a sign of is that a big hammer is coming. Historically is what I'm talking about here. Historically, like I said in the last time we spoke, the last video, there are patterns in everything. And Trump is very sneaky with the way he usually goes about things. Q team, they'll trickle information, and all of a sudden a hammer will come down on something big. We don't know what that big is, but with Comey being brought up here and with Comey's weird changes of late physically, I think that he's next on my. Logically stated, he would be next on the block as far as I'm concerned. Looking at everybody involved, they already got somebody, a lower level legal, I think it was a lawyer within the FBI. So Comey would be next. Maybe Clapper.
I agree 100%. So that's a good take on it. And the next one's funny because it talks about an anon here says, free Flynn. And this is from March of 2018, March 27th. And then Q responded, done in 30, house cleaning, White House secured, final stage. And this is something that was responded to on March 27, 2018. Then Q says, what is the over-under done in 30 months? And it gives this time and date, 3/27/18 to today is 30 months and 2 days exactly. If you go look at the, what it says here, the link. And then Q says, what is the over-under? Sullivan retires, steps down by March 2021. Based on public info regarding possible coordinated efforts with OSC Mueller, the Office Special Counsel with Mueller. So what's your take on that? Because, I mean, the way I read it is simple. I say this. I say, it's just another future proofs past. It's another military precision timing, but what's your take?
At this point, only a fool would say that QAnon is not a legitimate real thing. And it's not as you stated, precision-based military operation, in my opinion, military, and because there's just really no other logical options for it. And it's pretty phenomenal how these things continue to happen, isn't it? How something will be said so long ago, then all of a sudden, it'll happen pretty much exactly like it was said, but numerically it'll happen exactly like it was said. That's pretty amazing. Based on that, we really are watching a movie. We really are reading a script. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
And I think you're right. And that's funny because that's why Q always says you have so much more than you know, because it's like, if we could understand all of it in its entirety and see the full plan, like from the 40,000 foot view, as Q said before, it's like we would get that we've had everything. And I have that all happen to me all the time. I'll be doing a show, something will happen in the news, and I'll think of a Q post that I did reference, a year ago or something, and I'll go look it up, and I'll be like, dude, Q is again predicting the future. So that talks about Project Looking Glass, which we'll talk about too, if you want to here in a bit. But the next couple posts, there's only 2 left, so we'll go through them real quick, are 4771. Now, this one is so we know what the fake news tactics are, but now since Q said stop referencing Q and QAnon, and especially for like social media, like as in if you don't want to get your account banned or you want to get around the algorithms, stop referencing Q and just reference the information. So now it's obvious that the fake news is picked up on that, and it's like a targeted attack every time, right? They're talking about QAnon leaders shift or look to rebrand after tech crackdowns. The shift in tactics comes the same week as Twitter released new data stating that their ban on QAnon-related accounts was severely limiting the reach of the conspiracy theory, right? But it's hilarious, the meme that Q posts with the Obamagate, and I saw this on Twitter a couple days ago, so it's funny that it's here now. But Obamagate being this massive cruise ship and Watergate being the little tiny boat and saying we're over the target. So we're obviously over the target. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And for people who know the history of Watergate, it's absolutely accurate. I mean, Obamagate, people may sit here and say, well, it was just, they were just spying on Trump and his team. No, I mean, this is much bigger than that. If you look at everything that took place, look at the IRS scandal that took place under the Obama administration. That didn't happen without spying that took place. The information that they garnered about those people, about those conservatives, and what they did with it. And it's not just that. Look at the way that the senators and the congressmen kind of bowed down to them. A lot of people, the Obama administration, I would not be, I'm pretty positive that they spied on everybody, myself included. That, without a doubt, I was spied on during that. And it's not any paranoia in that, but it's just because anybody who was in my position for all those years, oh yeah, they were definitely keeping an eye on people like me. And video creators like you, I don't think you were around at that point as a video creator, but you would have been spied on if you were. And here's the thing. The media has a very large research group that checks into video creators like you, and to try to get ahead of the game, to try to, cut off certain arguments and stuff. So I know that they're going to watch this video eventually. Nobody in the media will ever come on your show or any of the other shows and debate any of us, because we would dominate them with facts. So they like to play these little games. They like to play these, oh, well, it's a conspiracy theory. You know what else was a conspiracy theory? Monica Lewinsky, or Bill Clinton sleeping with Monica Lewinsky in the White House. That was a conspiracy theory. That's what they said. That's what they used to say. Check out the old news. The old news. It was all, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. You know what else was a conspiracy theory? Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. All that was a conspiracy theory. Whenever they're trying to hide something, it's a conspiracy theory. But here's the thing that they can't control: the intelligence of people. People, if people take the time and look into issues, they can clearly see logically, intellectually, historically, factually. They can look into each of these things, facet by facet by facet, and see that the media is full of it. So the media has no chance to win that battle right there. And so they could hide it all they want. It doesn't matter. Keep playing the game, media. It does not matter. You lost. It's spread too far.
Agree. I mean, I agree 100% because, you look at this and the way it's all gone down, and I knew like years ago that basically what Q was anyway, if not for anything else, was just a way to get around the fake news lies and to break their infrastructure, which we've successfully done. Which is why Q says we are the news now, because people real people who really care about this stuff don't think that, or they know that NBC doesn't tell you the truth. They know that the only place you're going to get real information is from other sources, outside sources that aren't in the corporate media. So that's interesting. Now the next one is the final one, and so let me make sure I get this straight. So it says never bring an arrow, and then it has in a quiver in the metaphorical kill box there, and then it references this line of sight beam riding guidance system missiles. So it says never bring an arrow in a quiver to a line of sight beam riding guidance missile flight or fight. So again, you were saying something earlier, and I'll let you kind of chime in on what you think this is just kind of referencing in general.
Well, first of all, to preface, it's so interesting that Q brought this up, because when I listened to the Pelosi interview the other day, the whole quiver thing, arrow in the quiver thing, that right there really stood out to me. They're not very sneaky. The left is not very good at being sneaky and slippery about how to put a message in a bottle there. She was kind of like, doing her normal, look into the camera. We have arrows in a quiver. Like her entire demeanor changed when she said that. So it was kind of, I watched it and I was like, okay, she's sending a message to somebody. Either she's activating something or trying to threaten somebody. And an arrow has long time been a code for a missile. So who are they threatening? And then Q comes out. So I was just thinking about this the other day, and then all of a sudden Q puts this out here. And the interesting thing about it is that, they're referencing the guidance system, missile guidance system. And that, to my understanding, the LOSBR is connected to a Moab, mother of all bombs. So I don't know what Q is saying, but I think they're basically implying that, okay, you want to play this game? Well, fire your arrow. We're going to drop a Moab on you. That's how I see it. But I don't know.
I think that's a great way of putting it, and I couldn't have put it better myself, because that's exactly what I think it means too. So that's basically, though, that's it for the new Q drops. Now, so there you have it. That was part one of a 2-part interview, and to give you an idea of what's coming up next for our interview with Chris from the anonymous source that I've had for years now, who has been dead on. We're going to talk about the China virus. We're going to talk about who is James Comey really. We're going to talk about what happens at InfoWars, Clear Force, ShadowNet, all that stuff that came out just recently with that Shadow movie. We're going to talk about the Clinton Foundation and crime against children. We're going to talk about General Flynn, and we're also going to look, he's going to give an incredibly in-depth explanation of Project Looking Glass and what that is really. So that's just a little teaser of what's to come, because we have a lot to cover there in that sense, and that'll be posted probably sometime or tomorrow. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. A few more things before you go. You can support me and find me over on Twitter still at JustInformedYou. I'm also on Twitter at JIT1745. You can also come support me over here on Parlor at JustInformedTalk as well. And the official website for Just Informed Talk, justinformednews.com. Also, I have a BitChute backup channel here, which is bitchute.com/justinformedtalk. And if you want to help support this channel, there's a few ways you can do it. First, you can do it by downloading the Brave browser for free and trying it out. This whole show is brought to you on the Brave browser because it blocks the ads, but it's got a bunch of other built-in features that you guys are really going to appreciate. So you can get it for free. Download it using the link in the description. Install it and run it on your computer. It's an internet browser just like Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer, whatever you're using, but it's better. It blocks the ads. Give it a shot. I know you guys won't be disappointed, so check that out. Use the link in the description. And also, you can support this channel by coming here and joining me on Patreon, which is basically a way to do a monthly donation to keep the channel alive and running. I've been demonetized by Google and all that, so this helps. This keeps it going. And without you guys, I couldn't do this channel, and I truly mean that. And also, I have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation. Links to everything will be in the description below. Now, before we go, we do our segment, God's Grace is Greater. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to be looking at a verse out of 2 Peter, and this is talking about growth in faith. And I just read these words, and they jumped off the page to me, especially given what we're covering here on a daily basis. It's always like, how do we grow in our faith? How do we come closer to Christ? And these are profound words, but this is out of 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3 through 11. I'm going to share these words with you and hope they speak to your heart as well. It says, "For his divine power has given us everything required for life and godliness through the knowledge of him who called us by his own glory and goodness. By these he has given us very great and precious promises, so that through them you may share in the divine nature, escaping the corruption that is in the world because of evil desires. For this very reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with goodness, goodness with knowledge, knowledge with self-control, self-control with endurance, endurance with godliness, godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they will keep you from being useless or unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. The person who lacks these things is blind and short-sighted and has forgotten the cleansing from his past sins. Therefore, brothers, make every effort to confirm your calling and election, because if you do these things, you will never stumble. For in this way, entry into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ will be richly supplied to you." And that's it, guys. that's my message for today, is that, and I need to work on this myself. I think we all need to work on this perpetually, right? The line that really, stood out to me was, it said, the person who lacks these things is blind and short-sighted and has forgotten the cleansing from his past sins. We all know we're sinners. We all know we've made mistakes. We throw ourselves on God's mercy, and we put our whole lives to Jesus Christ. And even once you do that and you've been forgiven, you've been forgiven, you feel it in your heart, you have that, there may be times where it's easy to slip and to be judgmental, or to not do everything in love as it says, but that's because we are imperfect. But with this knowledge, here's like basically a guide on how to overcome it, right? So it says, make every effort to supplement your faith with goodness, goodness with knowledge, knowledge with self-control, self-control with endurance, endurance with godliness, godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. That's how you do it. That's how we all do it. And if you really want to know the best way to do all those things and have the power in your heart to do it, is to say a prayer every day. Say multiple prayers. And whenever you need God, call out to God. Ask him for help. He will give you the help you need. He will do things in your life that you never thought were possible, and he'll give you the ability to not only help yourself, but to help others in a way that you may have never realized you could. So my prayer for all of you out there is that my hope, I should say, for all of you out there, is that you use this verse to understand how you grow your faith, and how you can really, at the end, if you do all these things, right? It says, for in this way, entry into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ will be richly supplied to you. So that's my message to you. I really, truly thank you guys for all of your prayers and thoughts, and just I'm praying for you guys. I'm praying for us all. So let's continue the battle for Christ and sharing the gospel. That's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Thanks for watching. Remember to come here, click the big red subscribe button, hit that bell, the like button, I should say, if you guys want to see me make more content like this. And like I said, the big interview part 2 is coming up tomorrow, so we'll talk about that tomorrow, or you'll see it tomorrow. And that's it for me, though. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.